Reason number 987 to be a priest. It's pretty cool when a baby baptizes in the front row. It's just cool. It's cool. I baptized that baby. Recently, I was talking to a young man who wanted to be a priest, or at least had expressed interest, and I said, strike while the iron is hot. And he was asking me many questions. At one point, I caught on to the fact that he was trying to eliminate all of the unknown in our 45-minute conversation, all of the unknown about seminary, all of the unknown about the priesthood. This young man, in fact, was in middle school, so he has plenty of time before potentially entering seminary. So if he really puts his mind to it, he can begin studying all of the things he's supposed to know to be a priest right now. If he starts paying attention in Mass really closely, maybe he can have all of the prayers memorized by the time he enters. If he starts studying Scripture, the Trinity, Christology, maybe he can be ready for all of the classes. When it really caught me was when he started to ask me the details of praying the liturgy of the hours. This astute young man knew that we as priests are called to pray the liturgy of the hours daily, and he correctly assessed that the book we use is a little bit complicated to navigate. So he wanted to know exactly what this all entailed. He has to see my book, in fact. I laughed, immediately thinking of myself and my own long discernment and all of my fears of the unknown, all of the questions that I had asked the Galveston Houston Vocation director my freshman year of college. He was a tiny Vietnamese man. His name was Father Dat. No matter how many times I asked him or others, I still was concerned that I hadn't memorized the obstacle course that I was about to go through blindfolded. Even when I did finally apply to seminary and get accepted, I remember the fears. In fact, I actually purchased a book called Learning to Pray the Liturgy of the Hours before I started seminary. And guess what? I never read it. I still don't know how. I learned in just a couple weeks of praying with all the seminarians the intricacies of liturgy of the hours, and all of my fears that I had had before seminary, in fact, all of the things that I was worried I wouldn't know went away very quickly. But talking to that young man the other day, I thought of those things that are the most difficult to learn, those things that I am still trying to memorize: holiness, humility, love. We just heard in this gospel, Jesus asked the question to his apostles, what were you arguing about on the way? Gospel says, but they remained silent. They had been discussing among themselves on the way, who was the greatest? Then he sat down, called the 12, and said to them, if anyone wishes to be first, he shall be the last of all and the servant of all. One of the coolest things to experience in seminary is watching a man enter who doesn't know anything, who has no idea what he's getting into. The guy who upon acceptance to the seminary couldn't name a single philosopher or theologian. The guy who didn't bring any of the right stuff, didn't show up with a cassock and surplice, didn't have the right edition of the Liturgy of the Hours, who hadn't asked almost any questions to his vocation director. One of the most amazing things in seminary is watching that man succeed. Watching very quickly the holy ones become the greatest. Because these men have already been studying hard. These men have been living the life that God has been calling them to live, and they have had the humility that he has called them to have. This calls to mind the words of Blessed Columba Marmion, a Benedictine abbot, an Irish priest, in fact. He remarked this on death. For many souls, the bitterness of death arises not so much from the separation of beings who are dear to them as from the anguish of entering into an unknown world in which the only realities which count are outside of all of their past experience. In today's gospel, the apostles don't quite understand what lies ahead. In fact, after Jesus' plain words, the Son of Man is to be handed over to men. They will kill him, and 3 days after his death, the Son of Man will rise. St. Mark the Evangelist remarks that the apostles are afraid to question him. But they immediately start focusing on the wrong things. They immediately start focusing on their greatness, on their human achievements, everything that is not going to be on the final test. Every accomplishment that will surely fade away, everything that will look quite silly next to the crucified Christ. Fortunately for 11 of these apostles, we know that it all worked out. We know that they got pretty humble. We know that they got pretty holy. We know that they embraced the cross, that they suffered well, and that they loved. And at the end of their lives, when they met Jesus Christ again, who they had known the whole time, that they entered a world in which the only realities which counted, that world of heaven, those only realities that counted were the ones that had been the only part of their past experience. Relationship with Jesus Christ. Union with suffering. Union with love. Union with the virtue of humility. St. Therese of Lisieux, the very little and very humble doctor of the church, wrote these words in her autobiography: "I understand so well that it is only love that makes us acceptable to God. And this love is the only good ambition." I have no doubt that many of us are not ready to be judged today. I'll be the first to say I am not ready. But let me tell you, it's not a pop quiz. We already have all of the questions. We already have all of the answers. Is God's love the only good that we ambition? Or are you and I still chasing after everything else?